Welcome to Zodiac Talks Tarot, where we translate the sky into plain American speech you can use and test in real life, and where I, a longtime researcher of astrology, social systems, and practical psychology with a respectful nod to Buddhist insight, walk you through the signal inside the noise. Today's focus is Sagittarius and the working title is The Truth That Will Shake Your Family and Set You Free. A reading for the Year of Triumph 2025 that treats you not as a fragile audience but as a grown philosopher with a passport who knows that clarity is kinder than appeasement. So take a breath, square your shoulders, and let's be honest about what's moving. You feel it under the small talk at dinners, that tightness you mistake for politeness, the way your chest compresses when someone says just go along, as if your ribcage were a filing cabinet for other people's expectations. Jupiter has been pressing on your emotional sector and the message is not subtle, speak or suffocate, because Sagittarius does not do half-truths well, you do symphonies, and a muffled symphony is just noise, so the first intervention is internal permission, the kind that does not require a family vote or a committee memo, the kind that says peace built on suppression is not peace. It is theater. Families, like organizations, run on roles, and your unpaid role has been the cheerful diplomat, the expedition guide, the in-house philosopher who can quote Stoics at Thanksgiving and still load the dishwasher. You have been the family's emotional Wi-Fi, everyone logging on for comfort while you foot the spiritual data plan, and it worked until it didn't. The tower appears not as punishment but as a release valve. A functional demolition of load-bearing fictions, the moment when someone says, "You've changed," and you answer, calmly, "No, I stopped editing myself for your comfort," which, by the way, is the grown-up version of rebellion. Psychologists call this reconditioning the nervous system. Your body learned that honesty equals danger, so your heart sprints before tough conversations, not because you are weak but because your history taught your biology to brace. So we retrain with right speech, a Buddhist frame that means accurate, timely, necessary, and kind, not performatively nice. Your job is not to swing a sword at the dinner table, it is to lay down a boundary without apology and without footnotes. Astrologically, Jupiter wants expansion while Saturn audits your foundations, and that tension demands a redesign of home, your address, your boundaries, your rituals, your definition of loyalty. Gratitude does not require obedience, and filial love is not a non-compete clause. Your honesty may trigger tears, guilt scripts, and the classic "after all we've done for you," but systems resist change the way a thermostat resists sudden weather. And your steadiness is the lever that resets the setting. Humor helps when someone says, "You think you're better than us now?" Try, "No, I think I'm better than my old habits," then offer dessert because nothing disarms like calm plus pie. Socially, remember families are tiny nations with constitutions nobody wrote down. When one citizen reforms, the nation calls it instability when in fact it is progress. Your boundary might look like a career declaration that does not match tradition, a spiritual path that refuses inherited dogma, a relationship decision that quiets the house, or a simple no that ends multi-generational overreach. None of this is cruelty. Cruelty is asking someone to carry a weight that breaks their spine. While calling it love, your version is disciplined care, a Sagittarius virtue that looks like freedom on the outside and consistency on the inside. Finish the sentence you started years ago, the one you kept editing to keep the peace. Say it once, clearly, and then stop talking, which is the advanced skill here. Stop litigating your life to a jury that prefers the old case law. From a Buddhist angle, attachment to image is the root snag, the family's image of you, your image of the perfect thing. When a person has spent years filtering their own words to preserve peace, their nervous system becomes fluent in suppression. It begins to equate honesty with exile. The body learns that truth is unsafe, that survival depends on soft tones and shorter sentences. So when your heart races before a difficult conversation, it isn't weakness, it's conditioning. You were trained to treat your own truth as a potential weapon. But the irony is that the real damage came not from speaking, but from silence. Every time you swallowed what you knew, you told your subconscious that other people's comfort mattered more than your own integrity. The real work now is to retrain the system to prove through calm repetition that you can survive honesty. This is not rebellion against your family. It is rehabilitation for your spirit. You're not betraying anyone by being clear, you're betraying yourself by being quiet. And the moment you stop over-explaining, you'll notice something miraculous. The people who actually love you won't need the footnotes. They'll adjust quickly. It's the ones who depended on your compliance who will call it drama. When someone looks at you and says, "You think you're better than us now," you can shrug and answer, "No, I just stopped lying to myself." It's the kind of line that lands softly yet carries a decade of therapy behind it. Astrologically, this moment is engineered by tension between Jupiter and Saturn, the classic cosmic arm wrestle between freedom and form. Jupiter, your ruling planet, wants to expand beyond limits, while Saturn sets boundaries and demands structure. Together they create the ideal storm for redefining what home really means. For some Sagittarius souls, this may translate into moving away, establishing new boundaries, or making choices your relatives label ungrateful. But Jupiter reminds you that gratitude has nothing to do with obedience. You can be thankful for your roots and still grow in a different direction. This marks the beginning of what I call the era of sovereign truth, a phase where authenticity outweighs approval. You're not rebelling against your family, you're returning to your natural state of unfiltered honesty. It's the state the world keeps asking you to tone down, as though truth had a volume knob. But Sagittarius doesn't do quiet epiphanies. You are more shoot the arrow and apologize later. And if you do apologize, it's usually for dramatic effect. Still, this season isn't about throwing verbal grenades. It's about precision. In Buddhist psychology, there's a principle known as right speech. Contrary to popular belief, it doesn't mean being nice, it means speaking from clarity rather than ego. It's the difference between saying something to wound and saying something because the silence has become dishonest. The universe is inviting you to practice that discipline. Your truth doesn't need to be sharp to be strong. It can be compassionate without being compromised. Think of this as karmic housekeeping, generations of quiet compliance finally finding a voice through you. If you notice strange coincidences, dreams of ancestors, or old family stories resurfacing, don't dismiss them. That's not nostalgia, it's energetic recalibration. You're not just healing yourself, you're updating your family's emotional software. Every clear word you speak rewrites an old code that said love must equal sacrifice. You're teaching your lineage that peace built on truth is sturdier than peace built on fear. Now let's address that phrase floating around your aura lately, the chosen one frequency. It isn't about cosmic favoritism. Chosen ones aren't granted easy lives, they're assigned difficult truths. Their gift isn't perfection but endurance. They can carry revelation without letting it sour into resentment. You, Sagittarius, are designed for that task. You turn chaos into philosophy. You can walk through a house fire and come out explaining the metaphysics of combustion. When heartbreak hits, you write it into a travel guide. When family tension tightens, you treat it as fieldwork for your next theory on human nature. It's equal parts brilliance and coping mechanism, but it works. So when life shakes your foundation this season, remember, earthquakes don't destroy temples, they expose weak architecture. The walls that crack weren't built for the weight of truth. The ones that stand are sacred. The year of triumph 2025 isn't promising you a trophy, it's promising you stillness. Your victory will be the night you finally sleep without editing your own thoughts, the morning you wake up and realize you're not performing anymore. That is the Sagittarius version of enlightenment, freedom with a smirk. Because even in liberation, you keep your humor. When chaos hits, you joke that the universe runs a subscription service for drama and you forgot to cancel it. But deep down you know the punchline: none of this is punishment. It's maintenance. Every family system eventually requires an update, and you were simply the most qualified technician. So when someone asks why you've changed, explain that you haven't simply stopped carrying everyone else's unfinished business. When they say you've become distant, tell them distance is sometimes the healthiest form of proximity. And when the old guilt creeps in whispering that peace should feel pleasant, remind yourself that real peace often feels lonely at first. The quiet after truth is not emptiness, it's space finally being reclaimed by your own voice. You have spent years as the household philosopher, the built-in counselor, the one who smiles through discomfort to keep the unit intact. But the new curriculum demands different homework, fewer essays about keeping everyone comfortable, more experiments in radical honesty. You'll still bring humor to the table, it's your signature move, but now it's seasoned with discernment. Over time, the nervous system learns what the mind already knows, that authenticity is safer than pretense. The body catches up. The tremor before tough conversations fades. The heart beats evenly through disagreements. You begin to see that honesty doesn't exile you, it filters the crowd. Those who belong stay, those who don't drift. And in that filtering lies your peace. This is not rebellion, it's alignment. You are not setting fire to your family's story, you're opening the windows so the smoke can finally clear. That's the essence of Sagittarius evolution, a truth told cleanly, a laugh shared after the dust settles, and a deep understanding that sometimes the earthquake was the blessing in disguise. Families, like any living organism, are systems built on rhythm, repetition, and unspoken contracts, and systems, by nature, resist change. When one part of the organism begins to heal, the whole structure trembles, not because that healing is harmful, but because it interrupts the choreography everyone secretly depends on. In most families, one person becomes the unofficial diplomat, the bridge, the peacekeeper who translates tension into silence and conflict into a joke. For years, that person has been you, Sagittarius. You've been the one smoothing edges, patching wounds, and quietly negotiating emotional treaties no one thanked you for. But lately, you've stopped. You've realized that constantly holding the bridge doesn't make you free, it just keeps you suspended between two shores that never learn to meet on their own. Now you're burning the bridges that never led to freedom, and of course that feels catastrophic to those who relied on your silence. The sociology of this is simple: change threatens stability. When one person evolves, others must confront the ways they've been avoiding their own growth. Your healing doesn't hurt them, it exposes their stagnation. They will call it betrayal because that's easier than admitting dependence. But discomfort, while unpleasant, is often the first necessary step toward collective evolution. Think of it less as family destruction and more as narrative editing, removing the false chapters, the ones that taught everyone that loyalty meant self-erasure. Every system eventually needs a rewrite, and you just happen to be the family's editor-in-chief. Rewrites, though, come with fallout. Expect emotional turbulence, tears, guilt trips, the occasional performance review disguised as concern. After everything we've done for you. It's the script of a family trying to anchor itself in the past while you're already sailing toward the horizon. The irony is almost comical: the more you grow, the more they accuse you of abandoning them, as if refusing to shrink were a moral failure. They forget that love isn't about keeping someone small enough to fit inside your comfort zone. Real love expands alongside truth. You can love your family deeply and still refuse to inherit their emotional debt. You can honor your roots without living underground. Humor will be your oxygen here. When someone dramatically sighs, "You've changed," you can reply, "Good. Otherwise therapy's been a waste of money." It's a line that breaks tension and quietly signals evolution. Growth doesn't always look graceful. Sometimes it looks like being the only one not panicking while everyone else mistakes your peace for distance. But you've earned this peace. You've spent a lifetime apologizing for wanting oxygen in a room full of smoke. Astrologically, the timing isn't random. Around the lunar cycle of December 2025, Mars, the planet of assertion, aligns with Mercury, the planet of communication. In human language, that means your filter is about to malfunction in the best possible way. Whatever you've been avoiding saying will escape your mouth at precisely the wrong or right moment. Don't panic. The universe has a sense of humor and often uses chaos as its megaphone. When truth bursts, it rarely sounds polished, but it's always pure. For some Sagittarius souls, this alignment could manifest as a bold career decision that defies family expectations, a declaration of love or independence that no one saw coming, or a boundary so clear it cuts through years of polite manipulation. None of this is rebellion. It's self-definition. You're not breaking rules, you're finally writing your own constitution. Every authentic life requires a few inconvenient earthquakes to expose weak foundations. Now, zooming out to the philosophical level, the one your sign loves best, the spiritual essence of Sagittarius is the evolution from belief to understanding. Belief clings, understanding releases. You're not here to convert your family, to argue your worldview until they surrender. You're here to embody your truth so cleanly that people either rise or drift away. If some family members choose to leave, let them. Love that demands your silence isn't love, it's management. Over time, those capable of true connection will return, not because you chased them, but because your authenticity gave them permission to evolve too. That's how generational karma dissolves, not through debate or persuasion, but through integrity. The moment one person refuses to repeat the old emotional script, the pattern breaks. And as the dust settles, you'll discover something remarkable: your definition of family has expanded. It now includes the friends who meet you in truth, the mentors who challenge you, the strangers who listen without judgment. Blood ties evolve into heart ties. Control transforms into connection. What's happening to you is not a family crisis, it's a collective awakening triggered by one person's courage. Yes, there will be resistance. Systems always try to reboot back to their old settings. But stay steady. You are not responsible for managing everyone's discomfort with your growth. Think of this as an advanced spiritual exercise in non-attachment. In Buddhist psychology, suffering arises from clinging to image, expectation, narrative. You've stopped clinging, and that's why they feel the tremor. But the goal of awakening isn't to escape the system, it's to love without enabling, to remain open without collapsing, to stand firm without hardening. The paradox is that your independence will eventually teach interdependence. Your willingness to step out of the emotional hierarchy will model a new kind of family dynamic, one built on respect instead of obligation. Humor, again, will be your secret weapon. When family tension peaks, it's not unspiritual to laugh. In fact, laughter is the sound truth makes when it finally exerts gravity. So when the family group chat turns into a Shakespearean drama, remember, every myth needs a trickster, and every revolution needs someone with a sense of timing. You, Sagittarius, possess both. As you navigate this emotional landscape, let your honesty be your compass and your humor your shield. By the end of this journey, the people who truly matter will not only understand you, they'll thank you for refusing to play small. The others will stay confused, which is their karma, not your homework. In the long run, what hurts them now will liberate them later. Systems adapt. Families, even the stubborn ones, eventually adjust to truth. The initial noise fades, the tears dry, and something new begins to breathe, a relationship not based on illusion but mutual respect. That's the quiet beauty of this transformation. You don't need to win arguments, you just need to live authentically. Over time, your presence becomes the evidence. When others see you peaceful, purposeful, and no longer reactive, they start questioning their own scripts. And that, Sagittarius, is how real revolutions happen, not through rebellion but through resonance. By being yourself fully, you invite others to do the same. And that's not betrayal. That's leadership in its purest, most spiritual form. Freedom, for Sagittarius, is never solemn, it always comes with a laugh somewhere in the middle of the mess. It's the laughter that escapes when you realize you've spent half your life asking for permission from people who never asked for it themselves. It's the humor of watching relatives post about living your truth on social media while calling your own self-care selfish over dinner. You laugh because you finally see the absurdity of trying to fit an infinite soul into a family-sized box labeled normal. That laughter is not defiance, it's purification. It's the soul shaking off the last bits of fear and saying, I'm finally free. In every myth about liberation, the hero cries, breaks down, and then laughs, because the body needs to celebrate the truth it finally believes. Your laughter, Sagittarius, is your liberation bell. When the emotional weather clears, you'll enter what I call the quiet golden zone, that eerie calm after a spiritual earthquake. Nothing outside looks different, the same job, the same kitchen table, the same city traffic. Yet inside, everything has shifted. The noise of trying to please others fades. You begin to grieve the version of yourself who mistook people-pleasing for love and politeness for peace. You'll mourn the illusion that honesty could ever destroy genuine connection. But beneath that grief, something steady rises: self-respect. You begin to understand that authenticity doesn't isolate you, it simply edits your circle. It filters out the people allergic to truth and leaves you surrounded by those who breathe the same rare air. The family you lose by being honest was never the one meant to witness your growth. The family that stays will not need you to dim. In this stage, your energy stops chasing and starts attracting, you stop auditioning and start belonging. The year of triumph 2025 marks your graduation. This isn't celestial punishment, it's initiation. The universe is testing your mastery in freedom, loyalty, and identity, the three pillars of Sagittarius maturity. You're being asked to choose: will you settle for peace that's quiet, or will you insist on peace that's real? Can you stand firm when old roles collapse, when the good child, fixer, or comic relief titles expire? Your triumph doesn't come with applause or vindication, it's subtler and far more powerful. It's the moment you walk off the family stage, mid-performance, and realize the audience was never your destiny. You were meant to write new scripts, not perform old ones. The universe isn't grading you, it's promoting you. Every generation has its chosen ones, those souls who confront the illusions their ancestors left unexamined. You, Sagittarius, are one of them. You're the family's philosopher disguised as the funny cousin, the one who makes people laugh but also quietly rewires their thinking. Your courage to question, to refuse inherited fear, sends ripples forward and backward through time. Someone younger than you watching your choices will find the courage to be different because you dared to be first. Someone older will secretly admire your clarity long after pretending to disapprove. That's the paradox of awakening, it irritates before it inspires. Your truth-telling doesn't destroy lineage, it updates it. It repairs the old wiring so future generations can live without the same emotional static. Chosen ones don't arrive to be comfortable, they arrive to transform. They disrupt, heal, and liberate simultaneously. You were never meant to blend in, you were meant to open the door. Eventually, you'll find yourself alone one evening, maybe with coffee, maybe with music humming in the background, and you'll feel something rare, a calm that doesn't need witness. You'll realize you're not lonely, you're whole. You no longer need to prove your worth by how much chaos you can survive. You understand now that boundaries don't end relationships, they clarify them. You stop mistaking exhaustion for love and silence for loyalty. You begin to feel gratitude, not for what ended, but for what finally began, the steady rhythm of a life that feels like your own. In that moment, your journey comes full circle. You began as a seeker of truth, chasing horizons that never stayed still. You end as the embodiment of that truth, anchored, authentic, and quietly luminous. So where do you go from here? You live. You laugh. You keep expanding, not to escape, but to experience. You remember that joy is also a form of rebellion, especially in a world that profits from anxiety. You allow yourself the small luxuries: sunlight on your skin, real conversations, nights of peace that no longer feel suspicious. You learn to enjoy your own company the way philosophers enjoy paradox, with curiosity, not fear. You stop trying to fix everyone else's story and start editing your own. You forgive, but you don't forget the lesson. You stop rehearsing for acceptance and start improvising with life. And somewhere in all that, you'll notice you've become the person your younger self always hoped existed: brave, self-respecting, and still capable of laughing through the storm. So, Sagittarius, as the year of triumph 2025 unfolds, treat it as your spiritual graduation party. You've done the work. You've burned the false scripts. Now step into your diploma season with humor and grace. Remember, your freedom doesn't need validation, it needs participation. Keep laughing. Keep learning. Keep standing tall in the truth that feels like home. If this message resonates, it's because you're already there, standing between peace that's performative and peace that's earned. Say it out loud: I choose authenticity, even when it shakes the room. Let that be your mantra as you move through the coming months. And when you need a reminder, return here. This community at Zodiac Talks Tarot exists to help you stay anchored in your evolution, to remind you that you are not alone in your courage. If you found something true in these words, share it. Send it to another Sagittarius who's standing at their own threshold. Leave a comment, add your voice to this constellation of truth seekers, and subscribe to the channel Zodiac Talks Tarot. Because authenticity multiplies when shared, and every voice that dares to be honest makes the universe a little clearer, a little kinder, and infinitely freer.